Good morning, everyone. We will start as usual with a focus on our breath for a few moments to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment in present. So make yourself comfortable and relaxed. And breathe normally. And while you breathe in and out normally, try to keep your awareness to the breath. Being mindful and aware when you are breathing, being mindful and aware that you are breathing in. When you are breathing out, being mindful and aware that you are breathing out. And it helps, if it helps you to keep your mind more focused by counting as you breathe in and out. 1, breathe in, breathe out. 2, mentally. That is also okay. Or you don't count, you just keep your awareness and be mindful of that. And we can try to think and reflect, life can be very short. Even though sometimes we feel life is long, there is a lot of time to do a lot of things. It can be deceptive, misleading, and our life can be very short. Therefore, it's important to make our life meaningful in this short lifetime. So when the life comes to the end, we can be more happy, less regret, because we have made our life meaningful to a certain level, to a certain degree. And the way to make our life meaningful is to live more compassionate, more kind life. Out of that compassion and kindness and love, trying to contribute as much as we can to all sentient beings, to the humanity, to the society that we live in, as much as possible. At least, not trying to hurt and harm others through our body, speech, and mind as much as possible. And in order not to hurt and harm others, not only not hurt and harm, but to be service, help, benefit to others, it has to come from our mind, heart of loving kindness, compassion. And for that, we have to develop loving kindness, compassion as much as possible. And to develop and increase such good heart of loving kindness, compassion, and the Bodhisattva mind, we need to reflect, contemplate, meditate, and practice. And to do that, we need to be reminded of the practices all the time. For that very reason, that is why we are here, to listen to the teaching so that we can be reminded and inspired to cultivate higher level of loving kindness, compassion, so we can be service to others and oneself. And may our act of coming here together, listening to the teachings, become a cause and condition to attain fully enlightened or fully awakened state. So we can be even more greater benefit and help without limitation to each and every sentient being. In most beneficial way. Okay.
Page 73. We'll do the first verse one time. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakta clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. And then page 75, the second verse. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms' atoms, in all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning and cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the false, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 98, the short mandala offering. It may be at the bottom of 97 in some of the prayer books. Spirits underlying enlightening to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create to listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentients. Dola Penche Sangye Dubas Sangye Chedan Soge Sonam La Chanju Patu Dane Kyatsu Chin Dagi Cheche Gibe Sonam Dola Penche Sangye Dubas Sangye Duje Nisone Dodam Jebang Beche Dambe Chune Tenjebe Bodam Tela So, according to the Mahayana teachings, each and every human beings, each and every sentient beings has this, what we call Buddha nature, the potential to become fully enlightened, the most complete and perfect beings. So, no matter how evil
that one might seem oneself or others, everyone has the potential to overcome their shortcoming, to overcome their faults, their defects, no matter how bad it might seem, and to become most compassionate, most kind, most wise. So I think to understand that is very important fundamentally, even though we might be flawed, whether oneself or others, even though we might be flawed, but on fundamental level, we have this potential to overcome all the flawedness. It's important to understand that so that we don't become overwhelmed by sense of feeling, negative about ourselves, negative about someone else because of their sudden action, sudden behavior, and so forth. All those defilements, the delusions that make ourselves and others to engage into harmful and hurtful and unhealthy actions, those defilements can be overcome. So if we can overcome those defilements that make us to engage in such a harmful and unhealthy behavior and through our thoughts, speech, and actions, those can be overcome by overcoming the forces that drive us to do that. And that's those defilements. And so on fundamental that level, on that fundamental level, our mind is undiluted in its nature. And therefore, on that level, those defilements can be overcome. And not only that, also we as human beings, we have this basically on fundamental level, we are compassionate, we have this the compassionate seed. Each and every sentient being has that loving kindness and compassionate seed, and is about nurturing that seed, so that the seed of loving kindness, compassion, which is very small at the moment, that can be through properly nurturing it, that it can be grow, it can be blossom fully to its full grown up. And to do that, we need a lot of external, internal support, to create externally more compassionate environment, so that people around you can be inspired to see their own goodness, their own compassion, and inspire them to nurture their own compassion. So external and internal environment, through our meditation and practice. So that is something that we need to work on. And if we have not the best environment, then even we have the seed now, it doesn't fully grow. Instead, sometimes it becomes deteriorate. Even someone who seems very compassionate at one moment can become less compassionate because of not paying enough attention internally through practice, meditations, not working with that. And also sometimes, external environment that you grow up in, that doesn't inspire you to be more compassionate, and so creating the right kind of external, internal environment, especially the internal environment, is very crucial. And and again, I have, and again, more and more research, you know, more and more new research are showing that human beings are fundamentally or the basics is more compassionate than we human beings have thought before, you know. And especially, I think they did a lot of research on small, especially with the young children, because they are more true to their basic nature, you know. As we grow up, then we hear things, we see things, and then we make our own thing, and then we become less and less, we become more and more distant from our own basic nature, you know. Mm. They did even research with even children who are only 6 months old, you know, who cannot talk, but by showing the pictures of people's sufferings and how they through their expression, how they express, and they can see, you know, they are more unhappy when they see the pain and suffering of another child or another person, and when they see another person or another child or happy, then they through their expression they can see they are more happy in that, and through all of that, there are many, and also they did research with other animals, chimpanzee. I saw one with they were doing with a monkey, you know, two monkey cage, and where they can see each other, and they feed both of them, and after some time they started to not to feed one of them. The other monkey started slowly. The monkey didn't want to eat himself because he can see his friends or whatever. The other monkey was not being fed. So there is that kind of altruistic, even that animals. When that is fed, then he's happy, he's eating. But when other one is not fed, then he's not happy and he also doesn't eat. And so there are so many research that has shown, our basic is more compassionate and altruistic. Um, and I believe it is very important to really um, have that strong understanding of that, um, so that we can have trust, confidence in humanity. If we lose trust and confidence in humanity, and I always believe that is one of the worst things that could happen when human beings started to not trust each other, you know, because we believe we are very bad people, fundamentally, you know. Um, but if we have this understanding, fundamentally, you know, we all human beings has the altruistic compassion nature, only due to certain circumstances, conditions that we have been far away from our own good basic nature, you know. If we understand, then we know there is hope. No matter how false someone might seem, there is hope, because on fundamental level they have that good basic nature. And I think is important whether we are dealing with ourselves or with others, you know. Because sometimes I often hear people who are, you know, who have totally kind of lost confidence in humanity because they think they are all human beings are totally flawed, you know, and uh, bad people. Um, and I think because we don't have those kind of understanding, you know, um, and if we all started becoming like that, then there is no hope. You know, we don't trust each other. then that is the worst thing that could happen. If we trust each other, we can always find a way to get whatever problem, difficulties, tragedy, whatever, we can always trust each other, coming together, working together, we can overcome those difficulties. But if we don't trust each other, we will never be able to come together and to fix the problem, to overcome the difficulties, and we will not try to do that even. And so yeah, so it is important to understand that we are basic on the basis of that. Then through practice meditations, where we can nurture the loving kindness, compassion, the bodhisattva mind, and then develop from small to big, from limited to limitless, from being conditional love to unconditional love, from having compassion and love to certain individuals to all sentient beings. And so there is the potential, and we will be able to do that. But to do that, the method is the practice, the meditations. And until we reach certain point where there is no coming back in terms of not losing the bodhisattva mind, not losing the loving kindness, compassion, we need to continue to practice hard, because it can deteriorate. Even you have a compassion, it can deteriorate. It can be, and even when you reach the point where there's no coming back in terms of, you never lose your compassion, love, and bodhisattva mind, no matter how other people respond. But still, again, to reach the highest level, you still continue to practice, meditate continuously, and it's important to do that. It's just like taking care of physical health, If you want to be healthy, it is not enough for me to do exercise one day or 1 week. You have to continue to do your whatever kind of exercise to keep you healthy. You need to do continuously, otherwise, again, you fall down, you fall back to the same things. And same thing, especially with our mind, it is important that we continue to work on that continuously. And so here we have been talking about the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas. And as I mentioned, Bodhisattvas is any being who have cultivated this realization or attitude of the awakening mind of Bodhisattva, due to great compassion and loving kindness, the wish to achieve your own highest potential, the fully awakened state, so that you can be most benefit to each and every sentient beings, And so when you have that, then you become Bodhisattvas. And so that is, so we have in those practices are a way to, each of those practices are directly or indirectly, some of them direct practice, some of them as a preliminary practices, and some of them as a the behavior after develop that, or the actions after we have developed. And also is a way to develop loving kindness, compassion, to increase and improve that. And bodhisattva mind, the conventional bodhisattva and the ultimate bodhisattva mind. And so that we have been going through that. And I think we have finished verse number 15, and I guess we are on verse number. So carrying the difficult to bear, it means, transforming to situation which is difficult to bear, or too difficult to be patient with such situations, And so and then transforming them into a path, transforming them into a way to transforming in a way to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, or to increase and improve loving kindness and compassion. And as well as by doing that, not allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed by negativities, such as negative emotions. And then out of negative emotions, not engaging into something harmful, hurtful, and that can become cause of pain, suffering for others and yourself. And so, so here it says, 16. Even if a person whom you have dearly protected like your own child, or your own child, could be your own child or someone whom you have protected, to whom you have done so much, to whom you have given so much, as you will do to your own child, loving, caring child, where you have sacrificed your own happiness, your own well-being for the well-being of that person, look upon them as and even though you have treated that person with so much loving kindness, compassion, care, and sacrificing your own well-being for well-being of that person, normally you will expect that person to respond with gratitude, to respond with more same level of kindness, compassion, help. But even that person, instead of responding that, if that person become your enemy, and then that person trying to hurt you, harm you through their body, speech, and mind, and mistreat you. Of course, in normal situation, for normal beings, they will be devastated, very devastated, can be very overwhelmed. And with that kind of feeling so much hurt, because you never expect the person to respond to you that way. You never expected, you never had any thought that person which actually behave, treat you, respond in that way. And so when something that happened unexpected in such, then it becomes more hurtful, more painful. And that kind of hurtful and painful lead to become, upset, angry, hatred, resentful, all those negative emotions that lead to all those negative emotions, that hurt and pain leading to all those negative emotions. And when you are overwhelmed by those negative emotions, angry, upset, angry, hatred and resentful and so forth, then most cases we respond with a response in a more hurtful, harmful way back. That is ordinary people, ordinary sentient beings' way of responding. But when we do that, when we respond that with that kind of mind and speech and actions and with that kind of emotions, what it does is, again, it make the basic nature, the goodness, loving kindness, compassion, we damage that, we wound and injure our good basic nature, loving kindness, compassion. That loving kindness, compassion deteriorate. The Bodhisattva mind deteriorate when we have so much anger and hatred, and not only so much anger and hatred, expressing that anger and hatred through our thoughts, speech, and actions. One, it damages, wounds, injure our goodness, our loving kindness, compassion. Secondly, when we are in those negative emotions, we suffer. We create more suffering for ourselves. When that person to whom you have done so much, for whatever reason, they become your enemy and they mistreat you, that itself is painful, one thing. But then not being able to let it go and holding the anger, the grudges, the resentful, the hateful thoughts, then you suffer even more. Then we suffer more, If I hold that anger, hatred, resentful for one day, I suffer for one day. If I hold that for 1 week, I suffer 1 week. If I hold that for 1 month, I suffer 1 month. If I hold for 1 year, I suffer 1 year. If I hold for 10 years, whole life, I suffer that much. But if I decided, okay, whatever he or she has done is finished, and I don't want to get caught up in there, and I will just let it go. And so sooner you are able to let it go, the less you suffer. The less you suffer. So, and then out of that, when we act in certain way, then we hurt the person, we harm the other persons, especially if we have responses with certain, negative thoughts and speech, with the harsh words and cursing words and so forth, and then physically, in certain way. So it hurt that person, it hurts you. It hurt both. And that makes that person more angry, more upset. Then they try to get back to you, And so again, it only build up, the problem only build up. And so therefore, for someone who is trying to practice and aspire to the loving kindness, compassion, Bodhisattva practice, and Bodhisattva way of life, then here he is saying we should not respond that way. Instead, we should try to, cultivate even more love and compassion for that person. So here, it is a practice of conqueror children to be specially merciful to him, like mother for her child afflicted by illness. So instead of being so angry and upset, instead we should practice to cultivate even more love, loving kindness and compassion for that person by understanding, this person is, instead of repaying your kindness, that person is mistreating you in that way because that person is totally overwhelmed by their own defilement, their own delusion, their own defilement, their own delusion. It could be anger, it could be jealousy, it could be ignorance, any of those negative emotions, or all of them, or other negative emotions, whatever. So when that person is overwhelmed by such negative emotion, then he or she responds that way. So by understanding that person had no control over their own emotions. So when you see even the person is acting that way, unhealthy way, but then that person acting that unhealthy way because he or she is mentally disturbed, and have no control over that. And then to see that person himself or herself is suffering so much emotionally in there. So when you see their suffering, their pain, then you can feel compassion for that person. So, in many, like Aryadeva, one of the Nagarjuna's disciples, Indian great master, as he said, um, try to see the person is who has been possessed by some kind of other energy, spirit, or someone who is um, mentally imbalanced. So, for example, for a mother, when they have a child, okay, and the child is either possessed by some kind of spirit, some other energy, and then he or she becomes something else in that situation, in that moment, and he or she try to harm the mother, but the mother knows that your child, whom you love, is being possessed by something else. So therefore, instead of being angry and upset, you have compassion and the wish that person to be free from that whatever energy that has been possessed, and for him or she to act that way. You have the strong wish to see that person free from that kind of behavior and the cause and condition that make them to behave that way. So you wish them the best, and you will try your best to help person to overcome that. Or, a child who has some mental problem, biologically, you know. And so even though the mothers is trying to help the child, because the child have this sickness, this disease, illness, mental imbalance, sometimes maybe they might try to hurt the mother back, For the mother trying to be taking care of that out of loving kind of compassion, but the child with that kind of sickness, sometimes because they have no control. And so therefore the child sometimes even try to hurt the mom. But even when that happens, the mother will not lose the loving kindness, compassion of the child. And from there, the mothers wish the child to be free from that kind of harmful behavior, free from that kind of sickness. Not only wish that to be free from such harmful behavior and the sickness, but also the mother will try everything in their ability, capacity, trying to cure that child from whatever sickness that's making them to act that way. So in that case, the mother does not get upset, angry, and hatred, and grudges, and resentful for that child's behavior in that way, because the mom understands the child's situation and the pain and suffering. So same thing here is saying just that. So if we can do that, then that means the mom or anyone, parent, anyone, they have the capacity and ability, even when someone is trying to hurt you and harmful, still not only you can forgive them, but you still can have a compassion for them. Not only have compassion on an emotional level, but out of that compassion, you try all your best to help the child to come out of that situation, that pain and suffering. That means we have the capacity to do that with other beings. We have the capacity, potential to do that. And so here is saying, similarly, we try to think that way. Similarly, here is saying, and if we really think it's the same. In one case, is biologically there is imbalance, so therefore person has this mental disease. But when someone is overwhelmed by those defilements, maybe it is not biologically not a mental disturbance, but emotionally, someone is mentally sick, mentally disturbed. And you can imagine how much that person is suffering because of that delusions. Sometimes I think it's hard for us to see someone's pain. But, if we actually look our own self, then maybe we might be able to see that pain a little bit. For example, sometimes we lose our mind. Sometimes we behave in certain way which we are not proud about. Again, due to one of those delusions, sometimes it's anger, strong anger. In the moment of strong anger, we lose our mind. Sometimes, out of ignorance, we don't know the whole situation, full situation, and then we hear something very small here, or we see something small here, and then we feel that is the whole situation. Due to that, not understanding the whole full pictures, and then with a small, just one part, and then we become distorted, and due to that, then we get upset and angry, and all of that happens. Sometimes jealousy arises, very strong jealousies, and then that could again. So whatever those different negative emotions that could arise due to external, internal conditions. And then out of that emotions, we behave in certain way, mentally, verbally, physically. And when our emotions are, that negative emotion, when it decreases and subsides, then a lot of time we feel very, embarrassed, ashamed, for what we did. We feel very ashamed, embarrassed, regret, In some cases, we might dislike yourself for your such behavior. Maybe in the worst case, you can have a hatred for yourself for such behavior and so. What it means is this is something you don't, such behavior is something that you don't agree and you don't want, but in that moment, you lost your mind. You became controlless. You couldn't control your mind, your emotions, And that is why we feel so embarrassed, so ashamed, regret, all of that. So why would we do something which we regret so much? Why would we do something we feel very ashamed of ourselves or our action? Why would we do something we feel very embarrassed later? All of that. Why would we do that? Not because we wanted to do it, but in that moment, we become kind of being possessed by some energy, almost, by those negative emotions. So strong in that moment. We have been possessed by that negative emotion, and then we become something else. And then we acted that way. Not only we acted that way on emotional, mental level, we are suffering in that moment so much. There's so much pain. Whether you have a strong, when we have a strong jealousy, there's so much pain. When you have strong anger and hatred, there's so much pain. So with that, we understand ourselves. So we just try to apply that to others. When someone is acting that way, not necessarily because they want to do that way, because in that moment, they are overwhelmed by that negative emotion. They have been possessed by that negative emotions. And then they become someone else. Then they act something else than normal. So when you understand that, then you can feel compassion with that person, because even though we don't agree with that person's behavior, but at the same time, we can see that person is behaving in such a way because of being possessed by such a strong negative emotion. And not only possessed by negative emotions, but in that very moment, they are suffering so much emotionally, mentally. And also, just like ourselves, after some time, when their negative emotions subside, maybe they feel very ashamed, very embarrassed, regret. Maybe they hate themselves. Even though they're from outside, we might not see that. Just as it happens to us. So you can see immediately suffering and pain they are going through. And then, of course, if we talk from karmic point of view, and then due to such negative emotions and such actions, behavior of that, then they create so much negative karma, and then they will experience the consequences. There's so much suffering and pain as a result of such action in the future. But even if we don't look from that karmic perspective, future point, even immediately they are suffering mentally so much. Sometimes it's hard for us to know, oh, they are not suffering, they're just fine. How can they be? They are laughing. Seems like they are enjoying. Well, sometimes we are mentally suffering, but we are laughing. Just because someone is laughing doesn't mean they are not suffering mentally, emotionally. So important to understand that, and then on the basis of that, then trying to cultivate compassion. And again, all those teachings, all the lojongs, the mind training teachings, similar this, we have already gone through a few verses, and then there are a few verses will come in, and all the teaching in relating that. The idea is to differentiate the person and person behavior. That is always the case, okay? Person and person's behavior, differentiating those things, persons and person's actions, while trying to have compassion to the person. If their actions are harmful actions, then trying to take actions to stop such harmful actions. While trying to take any action to stop such harmful actions, at the same time, not losing compassion of the persons. That is the key. Sometimes we get mixed up, and then when we think we need to have compassion to the person, then we think we can just allow them to do whatever they want to do. Okay? Or when we say we don't agree with such person's harmful behavior, then there's a sense of feeling, then we need to have anger to that person because of that person's harmful actions. Therefore, so that is the way the point is to differentiate these two things, If we are able to do that, then we don't suffer. We might be able to stop according to our own ability, capacity for that person from engaging in some harmful action in the future, but without any kind of bad feeling towards that person, such as anger, hatred, resentful. And so then we don't suffer ourselves because of those negative emotions. Due to those negative emotions, neither we create more harmful negative actions out of those negative emotions. So that is the key. So trying to cultivate, and it is similarly to in another Ed versus mind training by another master, Geshe Sherab. To whom there is a verse which is very similar, almost like same. To whom I have benefited so much and have great hope, and even they mistreat me. May I see them as a spiritual guru or spiritual teachers. And so these two verses are similar, and in that way. So you see similar verses in many different teachings, and same thing as we mentioned last week. For someone who is truly practicing the Bodhisattva way of life, to become more compassionate, to cultivate Bodhisattva mind, to achieve enlightenment. Their goal is to overcome the selfish attitude, self-centeredness, egoistic mind. And then when such persons respond us in that way, it crushes our ego mind. And so that person is helping us to crush our ego mind, which we wanted to do. Unless we are practicing to build up ego and not to crush ego. Of course, if we started to do our spiritual practice in order to increase our egoistic mind and not to crush it, then of course the person crushed, then it is not a great helpful. But if we are practicing so that we can reduce, minimize, and overcome our egoistic mind, because that is the very root of all the problems, then that this person is helping us to crush our egoistic mind with such action, such behavior. So therefore, to see, oh, this is like my guru, my teacher, helping me to crush my egoistic mind, and therefore grateful and thankful instead of anger and hatred. And through that, then seeing as a guru, teacher. Yeah. Even though being equal, the next one, even though being equal to or inferior to them, treat them with contempt out of pride, is a practice of conquer children to respectfully take him to the crown of their head like a guru. So, even though someone might be equal to two in terms of education, maybe in terms of your status, in terms of in terms of your job or your whatever from whatever perspective, where you feel equal or someone maybe you feel inferior because you have better education. From that point of view, you feel they have less education, they are inferior. Because you are more wealthy, they have less, maybe you might feel that way. Or because you have higher position and they are working for you in a lower position, then you feel you are superior and they are inferior. So whether you feel equal or inferior with someone, and that person, someone you feel equal to them, not them being superior to yourself, but you feel someone who is equal to you or in some inferior to you, and that person, treat you with a contempt out of pride or out of any delusion, afflicted emotions. then again, it's hard to take us. Someone who you feel superior to, if they do that, maybe it might be more easy to take on that. Do you get it? Someone you feel someone is much more superior to you, and then someone contempt you, say that what you have done mistake, how you shouldn't be doing that, how mistake you have done, this and that. It might be a little bit more easy to take on us. But then when you feel someone is inferior to you, and then they contempt you, it hurts more. Our ego is much more harder for our ego to digest that. It's a little bit easier to digest when you feel they are superior. It's more harder to digest same of that behavior, same action when we feel we are equal. And it becomes even more difficult to digest when you feel they are inferior to yourself. And so because we cannot digest due to our egoistic mind, then we get hurt by that, pain by that. And that hurt and pain, again, as I mentioned, lead to negative emotions, anger, hatred, all of that. And then again, our normal way of response is, how dare you do that, So then we put them down, we contempt them back, and maybe we use very harsh words, maybe sometimes physically harmful as well. And with all of that, that is how we respond. But here he is saying, when we respond with that kind of mental attitude and verbal and physical behavior, again, it doesn't help our loving kindness, compassion to improve and increase. It only deteriorated them. Not only that, it doesn't make us more happy. It makes our mind more unhappy and more disturbed. So despite that, how can we keep our mind calm and peaceful? How can we keep our mind calm and peaceful so that you don't have to suffer due to that person's such a response or behavior or actions? And we can be, our mind can be very disturbed and agitated, or our mind can be still calm and peaceful with that person's same behavior and actions. What choice you want to make? When someone responds and acts to us in such a way, we have two different way of responding. One with more peaceful, calm mind, and one with your mind totally kind of agitated, totally disturbance, out of control. Which one do you prepare? Normally, our response with our mind is disturbed, agitated, and out of control, and then out of that we respond certain way. But here, what he's saying, we don't have to do that. We have the choice. If we learn to do that, if we practice and learn to respond a certain way, we can do that. And therefore, you can have the other choice. And other choice is out of calm, peaceful. And not only out of calm, peaceful, maybe even loving kindness, compassion. And the way to do here, among many different practices, the way to keep our mind being more calm, peaceful, instead of being agitated, is by seeing that person as a guru, someone you respect very highly, someone you regard very highly. So, someone you regard very highly, respect very highly, if someone's behave in such way, you might get it as instructions instead of contempt, And therefore, one of the, I don't remember which master, but one of the Kadamba masters, he said to his disciple, if you want to feel good about it, don't come to my class. Because I'm going to hurt your egos. I'm going to point all your faults, all your weakness, and therefore your ego will be hurt. And that is my job, he said. My job is to point out all your weakness, all your faults, and to destroy your egoistic mind. And that is what I'm going to do. And if you are ready for it, come for the class. If you are not ready for it, don't come for my class. That is what he said. And so therefore, so someone who does that is a real guru, because, sometimes, otherwise it becomes very superficial. I just say what you want to hear, You want to hear this, I said that. You want to hear this, you said, and you just follow. And your ego still gets more stronger and stronger. But that is not how the real teachings. The real teachings is to crush and overcome our egoistic mind, and to bring our own weakness, our own fault, our own defect, so we can work on that, so we can improve, If we say, oh, you are doing so great, even you are making mistake, oh, so great, everything is so fine, so great, then you don't see your own fault, you don't see your own defect, so then you will not make effort to improve it. You never grow up, you never develop. So then you are not developing, you are just wherever it is, you can't go further than that. But only when either we see ourselves or someone points our own fault, our defect, our own weakness, and so that then we recognize, understand, and then we can work on that to improve that. And through that, making effort to improve, then we can get better, we can learn more, we can develop more. And so therefore, if someone help us to do that, then that is where it's saying that you should look at that as a guru, because that person help is like that person. It's like, you have some something here, some bugs or something here, you don't see yourself, then someone show you the mirror help you, and then you can fix it. So that person is showing our own false defect, because we cannot see ourselves. Our eye is pointed that way, not this way. Our eye is pointed towards others, not pointed towards us. So we see others' problems. It's hard to see our own problems, or our own defect, or our own shortcomings. Not only the eyes, even the mind is somehow always looking for others' faults, hardly trying to see inside and see. And so, because sometimes we cannot see our own faults, we think there's nothing much I need to improve. And that could be very deceptive, On the other hand, someone point you, and then we see our own fault, and then we try to develop, and that is where we improve. And so therefore, in that perspective, then this person is doing that. And therefore, seeing that person as the guru, as the teacher, and cultivating a strong kind of appreciation for helping us to see our own faults, our own defect. So when you see that, and when you appreciate that person for doing that, then you don't have any kind of bad feeling for that person. If you don't have any bad feeling towards that person, your mind is not disturbed. If your mind is not disturbed, you don't suffer. So that is the key, you know. So yeah, we will have a short break. Without a perfections or practice of patience, there is no enlightenment. In order to become a fully enlightenment, we have to perfect the 6 perfections, and patience is one of those practice. In order to perfect the practice of patience, you need to practice the patience. In order to practice the patience, you need to get the opportunity to practice the patience. Without the opportunity, you will never be able to practice. And therefore, who give you the opportunity to practice is such people with such kind of actions and behavior. And from that perspective, someone who is serious and committed to improve the practice of patience, they are always looking for opportunity, even though the opportunity is plenty there. So they're always looking, and whoever provide them opportunity, they feel very grateful of that. And so therefore, they regard that persons giving that opportunity as like the great teachers to practice and perfect their patience. And I often say, you know, I often give examples of, there could be 2 types of teachers, you know, theoretical teachers or guru and practical teacher and guru, you know. The other teachers who give you instructions, how to practice patience, method, meditations, they are more like theoretical teachers. They teach you, you know, how to meditate. And through that, how can you practice the patience? Then there is practical teachers who actually take it to the field and let you do that, you know. Just like in school, you have theoretical teachers which explain you how to plant this and that, or how to cook, all of that. And then there is a practical teacher which take in the field and make you plant things and everything, work with your hand, or take in the kitchen and then make you cook. And that is where you really learn in the practical level. And here, the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, your gurus all give you are like the theoretical teachers, explain you how to do it. And then this person's, with that person's behavior, is like the practical teacher. So he's saying, you have heard all of these teachings, you have learned all of that, now let's see. Now let's practice. That is what he's saying. So, of course, if we are not so serious and if we don't want to practice the patience, we don't want to perfect, then that is another matter. But if someone is really seriously, they want to practice patience, they want to perfect it, then it's truly such opportunity are the true teachers. And therefore, in all the lojongs, teaching, they say all the difficulties, all the obstacles, all the people or sentient beings who create this obstacle, all of them are the best teachers. They are the best teachers. For serious practitioner, those are the best teacher and true teachers. And so here again, I think it's similar here, seeing the persons as a guru in that way. And for such practitioner, they truly appreciate that person's actions because they really wanted to practice and they were given the opportunity. And by having the opportunity, they were able to make some progress in their practice. And so they feel great appreciative and grateful for giving that opportunity. So it's a very different response from our ordinary response. So if we are able to do that, then that definitely we, as I mentioned, we don't suffer. And through the practice of that, you create a lot of virtues, a lot of merit. You grow up. On the other hand, it only takes to more negative side. And His Holiness explains, that he himself find helpful when certain people's, response or act in certain way, like similar like that, out of pride, trying to, contempt, trying to look down upon you, trying to kind of, humiliate you and so forth, it kind of, if it could upset your mind. And when you do that, then he said, when you visualize that person in your meditation, in practice, you think of that person in front of you, visualize. And of course, in most cases, when we visualize someone, such persons, of course, first response would be more kind of negative emotions, disturbance, anger. We remember how they treated us, what they did and what they said and all of that. But then again, if you try to practice, saying, as in some of the Kadamba's teachings, it says, trying to hold yourself as the lowest of all and regarding others as the highest of all. So then you try to put that person higher than yourself, and yourself putting Lord in that person's, then again, that could help your mind to be more calm, more subside, and to have some respect for that, and instead of the anger. And that is the purpose, to how to make your mind more calm, peaceful, and not upset, even if we took for some of the, stories, for example, the relationship between the great Marpa and his disciple Milarepa, because Milarepa has an incredible high regard and regard Marpa as his teachers, and some of the Marpa's actions and behavior didn't hurt him, upset him, but it became a very powerful tools, instructions to develop his practice. But someone who doesn't have same kind of respect and regard, and who does not have same taking as a guru and intercessor, they might feel is like humiliating, contempt. So, it's the same kind of, same actions that affect two different persons differently because of their mental attitude in dealing with that. And that is, again, another factor we have to remember all the time, because all the time somehow we tend to think all is in their actions. We put everything on the action instead of the attitude of the people. As though there is this kind of absolute humiliating actions. There's no. It's on individual how they take on that person's actions, whether it's humiliating or whether it's advice, whether it's helpful, whether it's instructions. For one person, they might feel very humiliated. For another person, because of their attitude in dealing with that, they feel it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. They don't feel so much hurt and feel that kind of humiliated and all of that, they just feel, oh, they just let it go, doesn't really kind of take it too seriously, too personally. And so they don't get hurt and they don't feel that way. And for some others, they might feel, it's instructions, even encourage, help them to develop their practice, their realization higher. But for us, the problem is, everything is out there. Nothing to do with my attitude, Nothing to do with my attitude, We can't see the role that our attitude play in all of that. In all of that. Our relationship, how we feel with someone's actions due to their actions. There is some action there, but the way how we relate and how we feel more than that action is our attitude, how we take on that. And you can say even culturally, it's so different. In certain culture, because it's the same action, but people doesn't feel kind of humiliated by that kind of behavior actions in certain culture. In another culture, it might be that. And because of the people in that place with their culture, they have certain attitude in taking how they take on that. So it is not the action itself. It's from what I hear from sometime, asking a age here is a bad, which is not the case in the culture that I come from. And saying old is not bad, Sometimes it is even when you say you are old, it means you are wise with more experience, Here, if you say old, then people get offended. So this act of saying you are old, it has different effect to different people and emotionally. One feel very hurt, offended. In one felt almost like praising you, saying that you are more experienced, you are more wise. And for in one, it was hurtful, offending, and for another, it was like almost like putting someone your high and a pleasant feeling. And so it's not the action of that, but the person who's relating with that. I think, so that is the key. That is the key, Most time we feel it is the action itself that was hurtful, painful, whatever different emotions that we. But most time is more than action, is our attitude, the person who is relating with that, the way how they relate with it, how they take on it. And so here that is the way we are trying to hear his saying. With same action, if we try to see things differently, then you might not get so upset and angry. Instead, you can appreciate it even more. Not the action itself, the person. Okay. So and then carrying the trouble into the path. So So again, I think here is translated in Tibetan is Kuba. Kuba means kind of poverty. Okay, so basically, again, whether you have poverty or whether you have prosperity, whether you have prosperity with a lot of wealth and good health, everything good, or whether you have poverty and poor and all things, whatever situations, again, both trying to take both situations into a path, how to use. And again, all this, the mind training, Lojong is all about utilizing whatever situation we are in the moment by moment, to a greater purpose for our spiritual growth, for our spiritual practice. Not only during the good time, also bad time. Not only during the bad time, also good time. So whatever situation we are in, sometimes we are healthy. When we are healthy, also utilizing that being healthy as a way to develop our spiritual progress, path, loving kindness, compassion. When you are unhealthy, also utilizing that situation of circumstance or unhealthy as a way to improve our practice and our spiritual. When you are poor, also utilizing that as a method to develop our spiritual practice, to become more loving kindness, compassion. When we are rich, also utilizing that, and so all with all situations. So that is where the point is. The point is, yeah. Though bereft of livelihood, maybe because, for whatever reasons, somehow we struggle through our life, with our finance. Um, even someone have that kind of situation here is saying, um, due to your past karma or whatever, um, due to past karma, maybe due to not getting the right opportunity, um, whatever reasons, maybe, if someone struggles, their livelihood, even the basic necessity, we are not talking about kind of luxuries, but even basic necessity, even someone who struggles in their livelihood. And not only that, or maybe sometimes someone is rich and wealthy at one time, then later, due to crash in your economics, losing job, losing your investment, or maybe, someone stealing your things, destroying things, and for whatever reasons, whether it's because from the very beginning or later it happened, whatever, but when you are in a situation where you have a difficulty in your livelihood, struggles in that, always be right by the peoples, and then kind of um, um, people looking down on you, be riding them. Sometimes not only the peoples, even the animals. I don't know here, like back in India and Nepal, uh, because there are a lot of stray dogs, all in the streets, a lot of stray dogs. Even they seem to be right, the homeless and poor people. Even the dog started to, I guess because maybe sometime maybe they hit them, because when they are drunk and that, and maybe they don't feel safe. Maybe sometimes they hit them or whatever, and because of that, maybe they can sense something, or I don't know. But not only human, even those stray dogs, they don't go after who is dressed up well and kind of well, but someone who is kind of like, dressed up bad and poor, and especially like homeless. They even started to bark more than started to come after them, Um, and I always wonder, maybe and you can see them, some of them carrying a stick just to protect themselves, and sometimes maybe they hit if they come too close, and maybe that might be another factor that why they are more aggressive towards them. I don't know, but that is the observation that you see, but I don't know who knows why the dogs are acting, behaving that way, those stray street dogs. So even that situation happen, no. So the people looking down and even something like that, you struggle with your livelihood and then be rated by people. And not only that, afflicted by grave ills, chronic disease, not just a temporary, but sometimes chronic disease, you know. And then your mind is kind of down, and like that. Um, so when those things happen, for most normal people, they will be very discouraged, hopeless, feel very discouraged, hopeless, and negative about their situation, themselves. Maybe they might blame themselves for that situation, you know, or you blame someone else, maybe the society, maybe the system, or maybe some individuals. But basically, we try to blame someone. Uh, Sometimes we blame ourselves, Maybe we think, I'm good for nothing. I'm incapable of doing anything. I cannot take care of my livelihood. I cannot take care of my health. I cannot take care of all of this. I create myself, whether we become very harsh on ourselves, blame ourselves, become very harsh on ourselves, or, we can become very angry and upset and harsh on the system itself, or people who create that kind of systems, or individuals, organization, individuals. So that, and either whether we are blaming ourselves, blaming someone else, and having a harsh, treating ourselves harsh, both, either way, where you are directing that energy, whether you are directing to yourself or here, right, left, front, back, is unhealthy. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. Um, Instead, um, how can we keep our mind, despite all the challenges, all the difficulty, how can you remain your mind still positive, you know, optimistic, positive, hopeful? Your situation is not so great externally, but if your mind becomes hopeless, discouraged, then it's very hard to come out of that situation. But no matter how difficult it is at the situation at the moment, if you still have the courage and hope, there is a chance of you coming out of that. Same with the health of livelihood, all of them. If you have hope and if you have optimistic and not discouraged, you will always try to make things happen. And when you try to make things happen, definitely you can improve to some level. Definitely sometimes you need a little bit of luck, or from Buddhist point of view, little karma, But despite that, you can. But when you become discouraged and when you lose hope, then you don't do anything to fix it. You just give up, and then there is the chance of improving decreases. You know. Mm. So, and not only you in the Bodhisattva practice, not only you not being discouraged with what is happening, but on top of that, you understand, I'm the not only one who's going through that. There are so many sentient beings who are going through a similar situation and even more worse situation than myself. At least as I mentioned in one the week before, I don't know maybe whether I was explaining maybe in Wednesday and Sunday, but I think I spoke something that I don't remember. But At least we human beings, at least there is a place where we can complain. The animals, where do they go to complain? You know? They have no place to complain. The bigger animals in the wildlife trying to eat smaller animals, where can they go complain? We human beings, at least there is a place we can complain. Even if we don't get all the help, at least there is some help we could get. And even though we might not have the best health care, but still there is something there. In many places in the world, they don't have any health care at all. No poor how you are here, at least you can get some stamp, food stamp. Many places in the world, there is no that. You just stop. Okay? So, there is always something worse than ourselves. Do you get it? And so our situation, even though it doesn't look great, but at the same time, it's not the worst. So understanding, I'm not only one who is experiencing such a hardship, such a difficulties. And not only on physical level, even on emotional level, We are not only one who is struggling with those emotional problems, whatever emotional problem that we might be going through, relationship, all kind of things. There are so many people who go through that. Many of them much more worse than ourselves. And through that, and trying to not be too occupied and narrow, just thinking my suffering, my problem, instead trying to open your mind and see the other's suffering, other's pain, and realize you are not only one there. So many others who are suffering and pain, and recognizing their pain, feeling their pain, and on the basis of that, then cultivating love and compassion, wishing them to be free from the suffering, wishing them all the goodness. And then with that, for the Bodhisattvas, those who are more courageous, then on top of that, then because of your understanding through your compassion, then on top of your own suffering and problems, taking others' problem and suffering on yourself through practices, through visualization, the practice of taking. And so that is taking all the suffering and the cause of suffering, the negative, with all the karma and all the delusion upon oneself, and still not being discouraged. So not only you are not being fearful of your own problem, but you are so courageous. You have become fearless about taking on others' own suffering and pain on yourself. So if we have that kind of attitude, fearless attitude like that, then you will never be discouraged. And through that, then cultivating and developing your loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta more and more through the practice of Dharma. At least, even if we don't have the courage to do the practice of taking others' suffering and cause of suffering on ourselves, at least, what we can do is transform it by me experiencing whatever those difficulties, suffering and pain. May others never have to experience, and may I be able to experience on behalf of them. By me experiencing it, may no one have to experience that. May I be able to experience on behalf of them. And then we can make prayers, may no one have to experience. By me experiencing myself. By me going through that, may no one has to go through that. So by doing that, then again, you have used your own difficulties, situations, to develop sense of concern for others, sense of love, compassion for others. And when we see, by me experiencing it, that so other doesn't have to experience on behalf of other, then you feel there is some purpose in that, positive purpose in that. you know, even though I'm going through that difficulties, but then by me going to others doesn't have to go, so there is meaningful in that. So in that way, you are helping others in that way. And so therefore, when you see something meaning in that, you wouldn't have same level of strong resistance on that. The more stronger resistance you have, the more painful it is when you are unable to escape that. You know, the less resistance you have, and when you are unable to escape from that, you have less painful of that. So again, and I mean, even in we can see even in very small levels, you know, even in very, very small things, you know, if you have a strong resistance to heat, you know, the heat doesn't have to be in 90s, even when it's a little bit what end or not beginning, end of the 80s, what do you call, like high. Oh, sorry, yeah. When it is a high, you might feel very uncomfortable. And sometimes it's not the physical, it's your mind, you know, because you dislike the heat. It doesn't have to be very high. Even just little bit of high can make you very uncomfortable, discomfort, and very miserable. Same with the coldness. And these are small, small things. And that gives you some idea, you know, when we started to have disliking something and when we have a strong resistance to that, and that when things happen, even on small level, it becomes more unbearable, more painful, more miserable. On other hand, when your mind is more open, you know, less resistance, less disliking, even though you would want to have comfortable, but it's still your disliking toward this discomfort not strong, then, you know, um, even is the high 80s, you might not feel discomfort. You feel, oh, it's manageable. It's not so bad, you know, mentally, physically too. Mm, and and that, you know, and that again, I can see, you know, in people's life so much, and even with myself, I can see a little bit of that too, you know, even in my own experience. But also, I see so many people, you know, some people become so miserable when things discomfort increases just this much. And for some others, the discomfort this much, they just seem to be okay with that. And it is your attitude. It is your attitude more than anything else. Uh, yeah, I think if we pay enough attention to our mind, our experience, it becomes more and more clear how our attitude is the key to everything. You know, if we don't pay attention, then we just think, oh, it is a physical that's making our discomfort, that is making our miserable, that's making our life miserable, that's making us discomfort and all of that. But if you really pay attention, and if you really, you know, are mindful and pay attention, and you see more than external is your attitude. Is your attitude. And if we recognize that, then we come to understand the importance of changing our own attitude, our own mind, more than, while definitely we also need to pay some attention to the external world to make it more comfortable than that, but more than that, the mind is more important. We have to work on both, Not only both, the more important is the mind, the attitude. And so, yeah. Yeah, even with my own experience, I've noticed few things, how my attitude has made me more miserable or less miserable, more comfort or discomfort, Uh, coming these countries where there is better facilities, you get used to it, and then you take for granted, and then it become more easy to be discomfort with even small things. Whereas before, physical discomfort was much more higher, but even mentally, you didn't feel that much of discomfort, you know. Physically, things have improved much more here, but sometimes uh, externally, but because your mind, your attitudes, always wanting better, better and better, everything the way you want, and so then that makes it more, because your mind is less open in that way. And also that is also like in when I was in monastery, that was also kind of um, in a small way training, like in the winter it can be cold in that, and the monastery gave me a electricity heater, and I gave to someone because I just wanted, because I was not feeling extremely miserable. It was a little bit discomfort. There is cold. I just have to wrap up with my blankets when I'm in the room, something. And it is just kind of learning to um, accept a little bit of discomfort, and that is same when it's too hot, unless it becomes too miserable, too unbearable. But I think it's just learning to accept certain level of, certain small level of discomfort. So you get used to it. And then slowly, slowly you can get, as you train, you can get used to even a little bit of more discomfort. You don't feel discomfort anymore. And because that is, in those countries, you see people in the winter with nothing, very, very, very thin clothes and not having shoes. And but there's no doubt there's some level of discomfort in that. But I see people who are in air conditioning who are more miserable than them. Not only mentally, but physically they feel that, you know. So it is in the mind, and so and I think those Lojong training are also same. We, even though we cannot at the moment, even though we cannot kind of experience the highest level of discomfort, but at least we learn from the small and trying to improve a little bit, improve, improve. Instead of when we have small discomfort, then we try to overcome by fixing something outside externally. Then we become too relying on external things for our comfort and discomfort. Because we, as human beings, have the capacity, our mind has the capacity, the ability, by changing our perception, attitude, and mind, that we can kind of, or even on physical level, that we can kind of um, experience certain discomfort without feeling discomfort. So anyway, yeah, we'll have the